Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, let me tell you about the latest special from Michael and Dale at MyPillow. The standard MyPillow, normally $49.98 for a limited time only, just $14.88 with promo code Joey. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener specials, and see all the specials. There's a limited quantity of just 10 at this special price. That's $14.88 with promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome to this special weekend edition of Just the Truth. Bill O'Reilly joins me to talk about his latest New York Times best-selling book, Confronting the Presidents, No-Spin Assessments from Washington to Biden. In this latest book, Bill weaves fresh stories and great facts in the same lively, informative style that's made his legendary Killing books the most popular narrative history in the world. You're going to learn things about presidents that you never knew before. Here's my conversation with Bill O'Reilly. The Bill O'Reilly Factor was the highest-rated cable news broadcast in the nation for 16 consecutive years now. His website, BillO'Reilly.com, is followed by millions all over the world. And Bill can still be seen on his No-Spin News weeknights and heard on the O'Reilly Update on more than 225 radio stations across the country. And somehow Bill has managed to author 18 number one ranked nonfiction books, including the historical Killing series, the best-selling nonfiction series of all times with over 19 million books in print. Bill joins us today to talk about his latest book, Confronting the Presidents, No-Spin Assessments from Washington to Biden, already number one on the New York Times bestseller list. Bill, it's always a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me back, Joey, and I'm glad you cited that. We'll be number one on Sunday on the Times list. So that's a world record now, 19 times. And it must give that newspaper great joy to put me up there, don't you think? 19 times.
I'm sure it's a pleasure for them as well.
Right.
Every time that I see where you're releasing another book, Bill, I think, no way does he do better than the last. But I have to say, and being a history buff, Confronting the Presidents is my favorite. Let's start with, who is your favorite president?
Lincoln. Boy, did he have it tough. I have pictures of him when he rolled into Washington after he was elected, and then 4 years later, you wouldn't know it was the same human being.
Wow.
So obviously he kept the nation together by winning the Civil War, but his young son dies, his wife is a nut, and all through it, he maintains his dignity, his focus. So he is far and away, I believe, the best president we've ever had, and he's my personal favorite.
Yeah. One of my first observations, we often complain a bit about how nasty politics are today. But, you read about some of those early races in our nation's history. Things got pretty nasty back then, didn't they? They just didn't have the 24-hour news cycle and social media to fuel the flame.
Oh, listen, when Washington left after 2 terms, it was John Adams, his vice president, as Thomas Jefferson, Secretary of State. Brutal. They just went after each other, and their surrogates went after each other. It was terrible. And from then on in, we've had that tradition in this country. Some people think it's good, but I think there's got to be boundaries to it. And certainly in our country today, there are no boundaries. So you can demonize politicians, you can defame them, smear them, and there's something unsettling about that to me.
Yeah, I would have to agree. You and Martin Dugard do some amazing research in writing Confronting the Presidents. The two of you uncover many never-before-seen historical facts based on private correspondence, newly discovered documentation. Give us a few examples and talk with us about what may have surprised you most about some of our previous presidents.
Well, Lyndon Johnson surprised me the most because I was alive, when he took over for JFK. And, did some good things in the civil rights area, but boy, he was corrupt. And the more we started looking at him, the more corrupt he got, Joey.
Wow.
And when you read that chapter, you're going to go, and the press just ignored it. Because that's what the way the press was and remains. If the press is rooting for you to win, then they're going to not report the things that are going to make you look bad. So Johnson, that surprised me. And then we have other anecdotes like William Howard Taft got stuck in the bathtub 350 pounds.
Wow.
And the White House valet had to go in and rescue him from drowning in the tub. And what did Taft do? He got a bigger tub. He didn't cut back on the calories. And we have stories like that on every single president. Washington's mother didn't like him and wrote letters to the Virginia press saying, my son George is starving me. It drove him crazy. He did not even go to her funeral. And then we have the modern presidents like Warren Harding, whose campaign is exactly the same as Kamala Harris's campaign, in that Harding wouldn't talk to anybody. He just waved from the porch in Marion, Ohio, hey, how you doing? And Americans elected him because they were fed up with Woodrow Wilson and the Democrats for 8 years. That was World War I. And Harding gets in, and he's the worst. He's horrible. And so it's a cautionary tale. If you don't know about someone, be very careful if you cast a ballot for them.
Yeah, yeah. On our guest line today, Bill O'Reilly. We're talking about his latest bestseller, Confronting the Presidents, No-Spin Assessments from Washington to Biden. Be sure and pick up a copy at your favorite bookseller. The thing I like the most about the book, you not only write about their politics, Bill, but you give us sort of an inside look at their personal lives, what they like to eat, what they like to drink, some of their hobbies when they're not working, how well they made decisions under pressure. Talk with us about some of those personalities.
Well, I wanted to humanize all 45 men because we mythologize them or demonize them in this country, and people don't know who they are. So, for example, Teddy Roosevelt, one of my favorite presidents, he lived about 10 miles away from where I live, and I'm talking to you right now. And you couldn't call him Teddy, though, and I didn't know that. He despised being called Teddy. He had to call him Colonel or Theodore or Mr. President. Called him Teddy, he showed you to the door. He had a real hard time with his oldest daughter, a teenager, Alice. Alice is smoking in the White House. He's trying to sneak boys in. And I put that in there so that Americans know that these presidents, they have the same problems, the family problems that most Americans have. And it's important as a historian for me to humanize these people. Even, presidents that I'm not fond of, we tried to bring in, they're not all bad. It's strengths and weaknesses. I don't rank them, Joey. I let the reader do that. But it's clear when I write, whether I believe that they were effective or not.
Yeah. And you really do. You bring them to life. And as I read through the book and again, I'm a history buff. I've read a lot on presidents, but I don't know that I've ever read a book that just really brought them to life the way you do. And give me some of the inside stories and some of the things, because, in the end, we're all human, and we like to think, well, that those were the good old days, but people did some of the same crazy things that they do today.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. We had a lot of chaotic presidents and a lot of corrupt presidents, and we got through it. And that's another theme, that even though we are as divided a nation now as we've ever been, the Civil War was worse, but this is second now. We got through it.
Yeah.
And I think we'll get through this, but the vote in November is very, very important, and people should not underestimate the importance of it. You've surging secular progressive movement with a candidate who will do absolutely anything to advance progressive thought. And if you want to have drastic change in the country, then Kamala Harris is for you. Trump, on the other hand, if you judge him by what he did in office, is fairly traditional in his governance, even though he's the provocateur at the level of Andrew Jackson. And that's Trump's favorite president, Jackson. And they were both like, you didn't know what they were going to do from hour to hour.
Yep. On our guest line today, Bill O'Reilly. Be sure and follow the millions who check out his website, BillO'Reilly.com, BillO'Reilly.com. Okay, Bill, you said earlier that Abraham Lincoln was your favorite president. So excluding him, if you could choose one of our presidents from the past to interview, who would that be?
I got to go with Andrew Jackson. I mean, that guy was unbelievable. Decent president, too. Brutal guy. Teddy Roosevelt, I wouldn't call him Teddy. He would be the second. All right, because he did so many things. And both Jackson and Roosevelt were good interviews. They're not going to dodge the question. And if you didn't like the question, they'd tell you, and then I could tell back why the question was worthy. You know me. I'm going back. I've interviewed 5 presidents. And you can just Google Bill O'Reilly, Barack Obama, Bill O'Reilly, Bill Clinton, Bill O'Reilly, George W. Bush, Donald Trump, whatever it may be. It's a very difficult thing to interview a president because you have to be respectful of the office. But in my zone, the no spin zone, you can't kiss their butts.
Yeah.
So you got to walk this line, okay, which I successfully did. But it took a lot of preparation on my part.
Yep. Confronting the Presidents, no spin assessments from Washington to Biden. You're going to love it. Pick up a copy at your favorite bookseller. Bill, we have to take a minute to talk about current day affairs. Give me your 30,000-foot view of where you see the presidential race headed.
Well, it's a dead heat now, and there will be things that happen in the next 6 weeks. So it's not going to be at the level of assassination attempts or Biden withdrawing. Those were amazing historical occurrences. But there are going to be things that influence the election. See it coming. Because the ferocity of both sides are very, very angry. Whenever you have collective anger in any country, it manifests itself. I don't think Kamala Harris is going to allow herself to be interviewed by anyone other than 6 minutes. I expect her to go in there. Trump probably will as well. If Trump starts to fall behind in the polling, I think there may be a second debate a la Ronald Reagan in 1984. And I suggested to former President Trump that he does debate a second time. Reagan got hammered by Walter Mondale in the first debate, but came back big in the second and won in a landslide. And we chronicle that in Confronting the Presidents. But I can't call it. Everywhere I go, Joey, everybody's, who's going to win? And I said, listen, if I knew, I'd go to London and put the house, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Because you can't bet on a presidential race in America. It's illegal. But you can in Great Britain.
Yeah, yeah. The vice president, there's so many things that she hasn't done that she had the opportunity to do during these 3.5 years or so. For example, the southern border crisis. She became the border czar, if you will, within a month of taking office. She's done absolutely nothing. Now she's suddenly gotten interested, and she's going to be in Arizona on Friday, and she's going to visit the border. Do you really believe that the people in America are not going to see through this sudden interest of her in going to the border?
People believe what they want to believe, Joey. And this race is all about hating Donald Trump. So the people who despise Trump, they don't care. Kamala Harris is a charlatan, whether she's incompetent, they don't care. They just don't want Trump. So she can get away with a lot of stuff. And I think it's a little unfair to Vice President Harris to deem her the border czar. That thing was screwed up by Joe Biden and Joe Biden alone.
True.
By executive order.
True.
All right? Harris had nothing to do with it. But she cheerleaded it.
Yeah.
And she told the nation the border was secure for 3 years, which was not true. That's where her deficit is.
Yeah. People, when they ask me what I think, and I'm like you, I mean, I think it could depend on a single event leading into it that could potentially sway that 10% or so who are in the middle, the independents. But, years ago, James Carville had that famous, it's the economy, stupid. And don't you think that really applies today as well? Americans are hurting economically. I think in the end, they're going to blame Kamala Harris for the cost of a dozen eggs and a gallon of milk.
Trump should be up by 10 because of the economy and the border and the mess overseas. He should be leading by 10 percentage points. But it's his demeanor that's holding him back.
Yeah.
Now, whether people will come to the realization that if I vote for Kamala Harris, I'm voting for somebody that I have no blanket idea about because people don't know about her. I think that Trump, and the Trump people certainly believe this, they believe they're going to win. Because when it comes down to it, people are going to look at their personal finance and go, we're getting killed here. And certainly Kamala Harris has not articulated any view that would improve the economy.
Yep. Bill O'Reilly, it's always a pleasure. Again, let me remind you to pick up a copy of his latest hit, Confronting the Presidents, No Spin Assessments from Washington to Biden. And check out his website, BillO'Reilly.com. Bill, appreciate your time today. Good luck, and thank you. Thanks again for the great work on the book.
I appreciate you having me in, Joey, and I'm glad you're doing well.
Sure thing. Always a pleasure. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at MyPillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.